Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Sorry, starting a couple minutes late today. Welcome to the podcast for Pause Alchemy of Women. You can put a little comment in the comment section if you're watching live or later, #replay. You're also welcome to follow me on YouTube. I'll put the link below. And I'm excited to be here with all of you today talking about cortisol and stress. So in our private Facebook group, Pause Alchemy of Women, I spoke about this, I think it was in February, about cortisol and stress, and I was really relating it to menopause, which we'll talk a little about today. Hi, Abby. And it's a really important topic because our hormonal system is a pretty complex system and really runs our whole lives, basically. So cortisol, some of you or most of you might know cortisol as they call it the stress hormone. My favorite doctor, Aviva Romm, also calls it the survival hormone because it comes from this very primal instinct of survival that was important in ancient times for our safety and is still important now because we still need to survive, right? So this hormone is produced in the adrenal glands, which sit right, these little tiny glands that sit right on top of your kidneys. If you've ever heard of adrenal fatigue, it's kind of a buzz phrase these days, and it has to do with an overload of stress leading to burnout. So adrenal fatigue isn't necessarily completely accurate. They're not tired, but they are very overworked, your adrenal glands, when you're highly stressed and burnt out. This hormone is regulated by your pituitary gland, which is in your brain. So don't want to get too scientific on you, as my way is. So it's also known as the fight or flight hormone. So fight or flight is this reaction in our system where we feel in danger, we feel trapped, we feel chased, something. And this comes, like I said, from this ancient sort of reptilian part of our brain that it comes from when, for instance, a tiger is chasing you. So before, when we're nomadic lives and out in the wild, a tiger comes and chases you, and all unnecessary, completely unnecessary parts of our system get turned off. So digestion and reproduction are turned off. They don't happen during this time because all of the blood and all of your energy needs to go to either run away from this danger or perhaps fight if you happen to be trapped. So adrenaline and cortisol are released during this, and that's what gives you the energy. You hear about, for instance, a tree falls on someone and someone standing nearby them, a friend or something, gets this adrenaline rush to be able to have the strength to save this person. And then after that, what's supposed to happen, and it's really highlighted amazingly in this book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. What's supposed to happen is your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the system, the calming system, is supposed to it's the system that breaks this, sorry, my brain just went to Spanish. It does that sometimes. It calms this stress response. So the parasympathetic system is supposed to stop this stress response when it's no longer needed. So that's what they talk about in this book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. So, zebras are at a watering hole or eating somewhere in a group. They sense danger. They all go on high alert. If it is an actual danger, like a tiger, they'll run. So the whole herd will run. And then if it either unfortunately gets a zebra, or if everyone is safe, the rest of the zebras, you'll see they kind of like shake their system a little bit, and then they just go back to doing what they're doing. And so that honestly is what should happen in people. So there should be, you're in your house alone and you hear this loud noise, and your system should actually got like just the like hairs on my arms and stuff just went up on the back of my neck when I said that. Thinking about, oh, that would be scary, you know, and you get this sort of rush of like, oh, what should I do? What is that? Right. And then you go around, you look, there's nothing, something fell in your kitchen, right? Something fell from the counter and you think, oh, okay, there's nothing, there's no danger. And your system should naturally turn this off, right? So, and then you get calm and you can just go back to reading or whatever you were doing, right? So, but what happens in our world with people, we have this stress response to things that aren't immediate dangers. So we walk around, at least in the society that I come from, you know, we walk around with kind of this low level of chronic stress. So maybe at some point there was a danger, but now it's kind of like, oh, that deadline, oh, that fight with my partner, oh, this. And so then they're kind of just little stressors, but they build and they build and they build. And if we don't have the tools to release them, basically what happens is we're just going. So like the adrenaline and the cortisol they come up and then they don't go down because you're like, oh, I'm late for work. Oh, I spilled coffee on myself. Oh, my boss is a jerk. Ugh, my coworkers, my this, my that, my kids. And so it's just kind of a low level that it doesn't have this spike. It has kind of like, maybe it's just going up a little bit, or maybe it's just steady, but the level should be down here and you're up here. So it's an interesting concept because this mechanism is just always activated then, but just at a low level. So it's just subtle. So you're just a little bit elevated in this stress hormone, but constantly. And so the body doesn't understand if it's a danger, like a truck is going to hit you or a tiger, or if you just hate your boss every single day, you know, so your body doesn't understand. It's just producing the hormones. And if you don't do anything to release it, it kind of stays that way. And so, as I mentioned before, when a tiger is coming, which makes sense, your non-essential activities in your body, reproduction, so digestion, all of those things, if you need in this instant all of your energy to lift a tree off of your friend or run from a tiger or get out of the way of a train, you're not trying to digest anything, you're not trying to make a baby, you don't care. But at this low level of cortisol, low level of high cortisol, I guess you want to call it, your body doesn't want to do those functions and reproduction is purposefully blocked because of stress. Because if you were living in these ancient societies and you weren't eating and you were running from things all the time and you were really tired, your body would say, this is not a place for a baby because there's not enough food. Things are scary. And so, maybe what you're doing is you're overexercising and you're strictly dieting and your body says we're starving. And so then it doesn't want to make a baby, for instance. And it does this high cortisol does a lot of things, you know. I'll just speak directly about women. Of course, it affects men too, but you know, things like painful and missed periods, endometriosis, low libido. And, you know, like I said, this group was originally about menopause. So I'll just go into that topic a little bit because it affects all of women. But, you know, even this theme of missed periods, like it sometimes can confuse women into thinking they're going into menopause, but it's really, you just have this high level of stress. Endometriosis is a really big deal. It's very painful for a lot of women, and it's really very linked to stress, as is low libido, which seems to be a menopausal thing, but not necessarily, right? And then things as serious as PCOS, which is polycystic ovary syndrome. And it really affects women so negatively and so painfully. And it has to do with insulin resistance and stress. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. So I don't know if you've heard of this thing called the cortisol wave. So the endocrine system, our hormonal system, is magic. It's so wonderful. It's so complex. A lot of doctors, regular general practitioners seem to not even really know that much about it. You have to go to like a specialist, an endocrinologist, but it's really interesting. It's this beautiful, magical dance between all these glands and all these hormones. And one of the things that happens is that cortisol comes up. So a normal cortisol wave would be that it comes up in the morning. And so cortisol from early in the morning is slowly increasing until it peaks around midday. Then as it goes down, another wave comes up, which is melatonin. And so as the cortisol is going down, the melatonin should be coming up, and that's how you get to fall asleep. But if the wave is screwed up, then maybe the melatonin doesn't come up, and maybe the cortisol is here, and then it spikes, and you don't sleep well. And often a cortisol spike will happen at like 3:00 in the morning. So people will wake up like, I don't even know why I'm awake, but it's because of this hormonal spike. And with cortisol, like I said about the adrenal fatigue, so your adrenal glands will get overworked and overstimulated, and then the thyroid will pick up the slack on what's happening. If the adrenal glands can't take it anymore, your body doesn't want to just shut down. So a different gland, the thyroid gland, will often pick up the slack, and then you're taxing your thyroid, which has a whole different slew of, I don't want to get too into science with you, but some of the reasons why all of this is important. Oh, just a side note, why in menopause and as we get older, especially as women, is one of the reasons it's so important is because when we have when our estrogen is going lower, it doesn't actually stop at menopause. We don't stop producing estrogen. The ovaries stop producing estrogen, and it moves to the adrenal glands. So the adrenal glands are getting an extra job. And so if you add stress on that, then that's where a lot of the problems come in, because our body naturally lets this other gland pick up the slack, but then so it's producing the estrogen in tiny amounts, but in the adrenal glands. And so if you're overtaxing it with keeping high cortisol, then that system gets screwed up. So it is a beautiful dance that we have to be kind of aware of in order to keep balance in our systems. And so symptoms of high cortisol, which, like I said, I like to address the menopause connection, because some of the things that we like blame on menopause are really about us having too much stress in our systems and too much stress in our bodies, and keeping the cortisol at this, I want to call it the low high level, right? So too high cortisol can lead to things like rapid weight gain, especially in your face or abdomen, which people don't love, but it's very connected with this idea of like, oh, I'm in menopause, I'm gaining weight. Well, is it that? And it could be. Or is it cortisol? Mood swings, anxiety, and depression are linked to high cortisol, even things like osteoporosis, because you're really stressing your system. And, our bone health is also linked to our hormonal system. High blood pressure and hot flashes, because if you think of this cortisol flush of energy, it's like if you're already feeling hot and then you get this extra flash of cortisol, it really can lead to hot flashes or this feeling of hot flashes. And then again, lack of sex drive and irregular and less frequent or even stopped periods. So I know some women who think they're going into menopause young, and it's actually, they're just stressing their endocrine system. Too low of cortisol is also a problem, but it often is, you often don't go just low cortisol. It peaks so high and then it drops. And so some symptoms of that would be your adrenal glands are getting taxed by that. And you can get dizziness or heart palpitations, which often is a symptom of menopause, people think, right? So, and, it's a more complicated thing than just like, it's this or it's this, they often work together. So I'm not saying menopause doesn't have its own set of symptoms, but they're often very related to this. And like I said, the insulin resistance, insulin is produced in your pancreas, and that adds to fat around the middle. And so cortisol and insulin need to be balanced in order for your estrogen to be balanced, even if you're not in menopause, even if it's earlier than that. Sorry, I'm just looking at your comments. It's hard to read and talk at the same time. Yeah, I will. I'm going to talk about how I've helped my clients with their cortisol. I will do that. And we're going to do a little short breathing exercise too, which if you are on my email list, you will get that. You'll have this breathing exercise in writing, but I'm going to go through it quickly here. If you're not on the email list, please let me know. So right now it's just a monthly email of interesting things to learn about and hear about. So, and as I talked about the cortisol wave with melatonin, it really affects your sleep, and restorative sleep is so important. It's so important for everything. We all know this, and sleeping things in a cool, dark room with no electronics, taking it easy on your caffeine, not eating too late. Another tool is yoga nidra, which is a form of guided meditation based in yoga. There's no movement. It's about getting to feel the different parts of your body and relaxing them kind of one at a time. It's amazing. We're going to talk about that next week on the podcast. And some more things to do about this, about cortisol that can also help you sleep, because, sleep is when we restore. Sleep is when we, that's when we fix everything in our body. That's when we heal. Sorry, I'm just checking another note that I wanted to talk about too. So in addition to sleep, healing our system, and that is what helps us prevent aging symptoms. Cortisol also affects your skin. It can lead to acne, but it can also lead to premature aging, skin sensitivity, rosacea, eczema, psoriasis. I imagine that you probably have heard that eczema and psoriasis are really linked to high stress levels. And so all of that is affecting your skin. Cortisol can break down collagen faster in your face. So in addition to just this, if you're stressed and you're doing that all the time, and I can see that it stays a little on my face, but if you're constantly stressed and constantly thinking and not sleeping, you're obviously going to get more wrinkles earlier. But actually, hormonally, the cortisol is affecting your collagen. It actually will produce more oil and then stop. And so it just brings things out of balance. And the breaking down of collagen is how your face starts to prematurely age. It can also lead to hair loss, graying of the hair, especially prematurely graying, and doing things like lowering your brain function and your memory, which even that doesn't make you look older maybe, but it can make you feel older if you start forgetting things and you think, oh my God, I'm old. I have Alzheimer's or whatever, comes into your head, but maybe you're just overly stressed and you're not allowing your brain to function properly. It can also affect your immune function. And so that's another thing that can cause us to feel older. If you start to get sick, like, oh, I'm sick, my health, if my health is failing, that must mean I'm old. Well, maybe it means you're stressed. And a main thing that happens with the cortisol is that it increases inflammation. And so I'm sure if you look at the internet or talk to anyone, you've heard about how bad inflammation is for us. Our body needs a certain type of inflammation to heal. Like if you cut yourself, it gets inflamed to heal. But, it also affects our joints in an aches and pain sort of way. Another thing that can make you feel like, oh, I'm getting old, like, oh, my knees didn't hurt before and now they do. But sometimes it's just the inflammation from all of the stress that we have in our systems. It could also lead to cardiovascular problems and even depression. So it's really important, and it's really something for us to look at about our stress levels, because we generally don't have tigers chasing us. I don't think it's too often that a tree falls on your friend. Maybe it'll happen, but not all the time, and it's really not necessary for us to keep, not healthy or necessary for us to keep this level of stress in our systems. So I started to talk about sleep before I forgot that I had another side of that page that I wanted to talk about. Really cherishing your sleep as one of the key components to heal your system. And so, especially with the electronics, not looking at your phone at night, which is something I struggle with also. I use my phone as my music, and I use my phone as my clock, but really making a point to focus on your sleep and focus on how restorative that is, and how that can make you, if you have a crappy night's sleep, I wake up and you have dark circles under your eyes. Maybe you've been squinting because you were not sleeping well. You look older often if you don't sleep. And like I said, we're going to talk about yoga nidra next week, which is a lifesaver. So that's one of the things in my program. We have a yoga nidra portion because it's so important. It really resets your nervous system and allows you to be calmer in your day, but also sleep. And as far as releasing stress, one of my favorite techniques, which is actually referred to as the zebra technique, when from that book, Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, is moving or shaking. And so here where I live in Peru, ecstatic dance is a very popular thing. So it's a dance that is just like they put music on and it's kind of a meditation. Everyone does their own dance. It's not about looking good. It's about getting the energy moving in your body. But my thing is shaking. And so I think I mentioned before, when the tiger goes away, the zebras you see their skin sort of shake a little. Or I have dogs, and there's a lot of street dogs here. So sometimes they get into a fight. And if two dogs get into a fight, I'm always really worried about them after. And they sort of shake their whole body and their hair goes all up. And then they're fine because they're getting this cortisol that's up here. Your body does this movement and it's as though you ran. So it can actually release that trauma from your system. And so if you're not having a drastic event happen, you can actually bring this movement into your system on a regular basis. Or say you get into an argument with someone, or you don't like what your partner said, or you're something with your kids or something with your job, you can do this shaking. And there's some movements I do this in my program, but also, you can just look it up. You can just look up shaking meditation, or you just basically shake your whole body and however it feels good to you. And then after you shake for a little while, you really want to focus on getting that hormones out, getting it moving along. And then you can either journal or lie down. I like to lay down a little bit after to get that feeling out of your system. And it is actually a scientifically proven practice because it's akin to the zebras running. Because the cortisol went up, then they run and they spend the cortisol, and then they can calm down. And that's why zebras don't get ulcers. That's why it's called that. So that's one of the main things I love to do. And I would love to hear if any of you try that and see how it feels in your system. I'm a big fan of journaling crazy things that are in my head of what I hate and what happened and who I'm mad at and what sort of, awful things people have done to me, just to get it out. And then I burn it. Right. And so it allows you you can be a victim for a little bit. You can be really mad for a little bit and then releasing it. And one of the main goals with my coaching that I like to teach women specifically is how to be easier on ourselves, because we're so hard on ourselves. And often that's why we're critical of other people, because we're so critical of ourselves. And so this idea of being easy on yourself, taking some things off of your plate that aren't necessary, because we do so many things that we they're the most necessary in the world. If I don't get this laundry done right now, the world is going to end. And it's crazy, maybe you want to do your laundry, but if the act of doing it is more stressful than the act of leaving it, sometimes you have to decide. And really deciding what you need, what we need as women. And this is a thing that I found when I was working with women through menopause, is that one of the things that feels like maybe it's a hormonal symptom, but I think it's maybe a societal symptom, is that we don't know what we need. We don't do what we need. We don't ask for help. And it makes all of these symptoms of like, oh, I'm in pain or I'm this. Often it's because we're not honoring what we need. Do I have to do the laundry? Do I have to do this for this other person? Or maybe I don't have to. We're adding unnecessary stress on ourselves really often. And you don't have to be everything to everyone all the time. You don't have to. And so if you won't give yourself permission, I love for it to be my job to give women permission to get help, to say no, to just feel what they need in that moment and honor that when it's not really detrimentally affecting someone. If someone is not desperately really in need of your services at that moment and it doesn't feel good to you, don't do it. So just to end here, I would love to just talk about breathing for a little bit. And so as I'm talking, I'm feeling like, oh, I'm not breathing. And I often notice, have you ever in your day thought, oh, I'm not breathing, which seems crazy because it's an automatic thing, but a deep breath, of course you're breathing, because if you weren't breathing, you would be dying, but you're not breathing maybe deep enough. And I notice that if I'm going about doing things in the city or something, then I'm not actually breathing, or I'm breathing just enough to not die, basically. So one of the things that our parasympathetic, the calming part of our nervous system, loves, and like I said that before, that parasympathetic system is the part of the system that turns off that cortisol stress response when it's not needed anymore. And so it's really important to honor the system. So one of the things that parasympathetic, try to say that word, it's not easy. What that system loves is having a longer exhale than an inhale. And this is something I've talked about in my group a bunch. This is something I did on the last call, on the last Facebook Live that I did about cortisol, but we're going to do it again. It's also in the email. So if you would like to join me, feel free. You can do this with open or closed eyes. So the idea is very simple. This is something I love because you can do it anywhere. You can do it at work. You can do it when you're in a conversation with someone briefly. You can do it on the bus. You can be at a doctor's appointment, anything. And it's just a way to just really quickly take your nervous system down a notch. So the idea is this: however many counts, 1, 2, 3, however many counts you inhale, you exhale for double that amount. So if you inhale for a count of 3, you would exhale, if it's comfortable, for a count of 5 or 6. However many numbers, if you inhale for a count of 2, exhale for a count of 4. So we'll just do that briefly, and we'll see if I don't pass out while I'm doing this, because I love it, but I'm also at really high altitude, so the breath affects me more. So anyway, if you'd like, if it feels comfortable to you, closing your eyes and just take a couple of normal breaths, just coming into your body for a second. And on the next inhale, I'll inhale for a count of 3. So inhaling 1, 2, 3, and then exhaling for double. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then doing that again. So just doing a couple of times at your own pace. Inhaling for 3. Exhaling for 5 or 6. One more time at your own pace. Inhaling for 3. Exhaling 5 or 6. See if you can maybe drop your shoulders down a little. And then just coming back for your normal breath. If your eyes are closed, just keep them closed for a second or a few seconds. And just feeling how that change feels in your body. Did it do something? Do you feel a little more centered? Do you feel a little more relaxed? I hope so. Hopefully I won't fall asleep on this Facebook Live. Yeah, anyway, so like I said, that is a very simple way to just, you feel something, you feel your system getting aggravated for whatever reason, and just calming it down. So yeah, just remembering however long it is, the exhale is longer than the inhale, and that will kind of bring your system back into a little bit of alignment. Yeah, so let me know if you practice that. Let me know if that helps you, or if you have any questions about anything that we talked about today. Cortisol is a big, complex subject, like I said. So I'm happy to answer any of your questions. And yeah, if you want to know any more about my programs or how else I can help you, I also am re-offering now private one-to-one coaching in addition to the group program that I'll be offering soon. So don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, and I look forward to seeing you next week when I'll be talking to my friend Claire about yoga and yoga nidra and all things breathing. Thank you so much. Have a great day.